Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 2 of the Ultimate Upline podcast. I'm Dave Mullane. With me, I have Dave Yost and Jason Barber. How are you guys doing here today?
Doing well, ready for the work week.
You know it, always.
Yeah, we're actually recording this on a Sunday evening. And if you're joining us at episode 2, maybe you didn't pick up episode 1, just a reminder of what the Ultimate Upline organization is. So we are a group of believers. We're dedicated to serving agents who work in the Medicare profession. And our goal is to help just encourage and equip you in your calling, both in business and in your personal walk with Christ. And so tonight we have some things that we want to touch on. If you didn't see episode 1, go back and check that out. You'll find out a little bit more about who we are and kind of why we started to do this together, right, men?
That's right.
Absolutely.
But tonight, Dave Yost actually organized our session. So I'm going to throw things his way, and Jason and I will have some conversation and some dialogue back and forth with Dave. But Dave, can you first set this up and explain why you thought it would be important to, in episode 2, cover the value of using a broker and the increased value specifically of using a local broker, both for clients and kind of why that matters to the agents that will probably be listening to this?
Yeah, sure. And it's the value of using a broker and increased value of a local broker, but it's also the importance of what we say as a broker. That's true not only in business, it's true in all facets of life. And right now I'm going through the book of James, and James 3 talks a lot about taming the tongue, which he says is impossible to do. So we need the Lord's grace in our everyday lives, and also when we go to work, to make sure that we're educating our clients and we're recommending the things that are going to be in their best interest and putting them in the best position possible. So I would say to start off, the value of using a local broker is the fact that you get the details, the specifics of your local area, hospital systems, doctors. We talk about this all the time, pharmacies. When you call the 1-800 hotlines, you're getting maybe a few plans, but you're definitely not getting someone who knows your market. Like Jason down in the Columbus market, you guys have had a lot of turmoil the last couple of years with plans leaving the area, with hospitals coming in and out of network. Do you think someone that works at a 1-800 number would be up to all those details? And how have you been able to kind of cut through that as a local broker?
Yeah, it has been a nightmare the last couple of years. And what we find we're doing down here a lot is redoing work because people called those 1-800 numbers and they went with a plan that it might cover their meds, but those 1-800 numbers aren't as familiar with what's going on with contracting with those hospital systems. And because of our connections and our proximity to them. I mean, this is where we live. We work right where we live. So we know what's going on with those contracting things. So when we're redoing that work, it's because of that. So yeah, local it's the only way to go, real honestly.
And Dave, what's your experience been when you're comparing people who run their business or who work for a call center, the way that they typically structure a meeting and might approach Medicare as a whole, compared to how a local broker would do it? Because we spend a lot of time in our educational seminars as well hitting on that. What's your experience been between those two?
So I think one approach is to just try to get as many sales as somebody can. And there's entities out there that view this as a very transactional sales type relationship, where I think the majority of brokers who are local, if not almost all of them, right, tend to treat it more like a relationship. They tend to not view each interaction with a client even as a sale because, Dave, you and I talk about this all the time. And Jason, I know you know this to be true too. Medicare is really a forced choice. Like there are just very, very few people walking around who only have Medicare Part A and Part B and do not have a supplement plan or a Medicare Advantage plan to indemnify themselves against out-of-pocket risk, and they want the additional benefits. So I think the local broker guides the client towards that decision. The local broker typically has all of the plan options available in that specific region and area. And then the local broker is there for that individual, both at that initial meeting where they're educating the client, giving them all their choices, guiding them to make a choice based on information, where sometimes I feel like with call centers, at least from what we hear from clients who come to us after that experience, those people are typically pushing one or two plans and they're trying to sell because they haven't done that work that we all do in our areas to be really well equipped to take good care of people.
It's a great way to say it.
Exactly.
It's true.
So this is something that was kind of unexpected in the industry the last couple of years, but it has taken the industry by storm. And it's the amount of non-commissionable plans, not only Medicare Advantage plans, but for us currently, the way it stands, really there's almost no prescription drug plans that we can offer and get paid a commission for. And Dave, Jason, you guys talk about the value of a local broker because it's a relationship. It's someone that you're going to have to sit down face to face across the table with year after year after year. How are you balancing the fact now that we don't get paid commission for so much of the work we're doing during the annual enrollment period if we have Medicare supplement clients come in and they want a drug plan? I mean, the reality is most people aren't moving their Medicare supplement year after year, but many times they do change their drug plan year after year. So if we are, called to serve these individuals like we are, how do you balance that, the time you spend and the fact that you don't get paid? Are you sending them off to Medicare.gov, or are you still taking the time to serve them, knowing that it's the right thing to do?
So we're still going through those plans with our clients. We're walking them through their options on Medicare.gov, and letting them know, hey, there's 10 or however many prescription drug plans there are available for the state, and here's all of your options. And of course, we know that as we talk to them, there's no commission that is there to be made, but it's also keeping that relationship open for for the future too, because you don't want someone else to come in and do less of a job than you would do because they think, hey, I might sell them on something else later. And I know of agents who do that, but it's still that relationship thing, like Dave talked about, where we're here to help them. We're here to, well, our logo is a barn, and our kind of motto is that it won't always be summer. We're building barns. And in Genesis, we've been going through Joseph's story and how he kind of built barns over the 7 years of plenty, so that he could prepare for those 7 years of famine. And we're helping these people build their barns, and it doesn't always benefit us, and that's okay. But we know that we are doing the right thing, and ultimately I can live with foregoing a commission here or there if I know I'm doing the right thing.
It's interesting. Just this week, there was a senator, I'm not going to throw a name out, actually was a House Representative member, who was trying to make the point that brokers shouldn't get renewal commissions. So all of you agents who are listening to this, you already know how renewal commissions work, and we know those amounts. And if you're a potential client listening to this, give us a call. We'll gladly show you what those amounts are, because it is money that helps us have a livelihood. But for these political individuals who don't really understand the system, that's how all insurance works, right? Your agent gets a commission off of your policy renewal. And the point of this elected official was, well, maybe that client hadn't talked to that agent in a year or 2 or 3. Well, that might be true. And that might also be true of your personal lines insurance agent, the home and auto agent. But those renewal commissions allow us to be there just like your personal lines agent when you need us. Those renewal commissions allow us to have a staff of service individuals. They allow us to send you those email or those letters that we do every year to do a benefit checkup with you. to make sure that your plan is still the right plan for you. And we do check that even if we don't meet with our clients. So if you're an agent, one thing that we really pride ourselves on is trying to make a point of contact, either by letter, by phone, or by meeting, with every client that we have every single fall going into the annual enrollment period. And on top of that, it's all of the maintenance work. Being there to answer the phone is not something that you can just not pay agents to do until they do it, right? We have to keep the phone system paid for, right, Dave?
That's right.
So it's ironic to hear them say that, but it harkens back to Jason's point that we're in this to take care of people. We are also in this to provide for our families and for the families of those individuals that work for us. But I think the local agent, by and large, and I can't say all, but the ones that I'm associated with, especially the two brothers that are on this podcast with me, we're going to do right for you, even if it means we don't get a commission. And that's what it should be about. People who are listening to this podcast, I have little hesitation to say that you already think that way because of what you believe. And Dave, to go back to your question, like how do we navigate this period of uncertainty with broker commissions? You're a really good example of this, but we just trust. We just trust in God and God's provision that if we do right by people, they will go tell other people that we did right by them. And God will continue to open those doors for us to be able to remain in business and do what we really love, which is just helping people each and every day.
Couldn't agree more. And Dave, we work a lot with financial advisors. We get referrals from them. And when you're around that industry, you often hear the word fiduciary. You're obligated to do what's in the best interest of the client. And that's really what we try and do, in every single meeting we conduct. And I want to go back to James, though. James 3:1. So this is kind of like a wake-up call right out of the gate in this chapter. It starts off by James saying, "Not many of you should become teachers." Well, there's an encouraging statement. And oddly enough, you two are both teachers. You are in the educational field, but it's what we do as well. Teachers end up being some of our best agents when we bring them on board. Obviously, James isn't talking about Medicare here. He's talking about the gospel. He says, "Not many of you should become teachers, for you know that we who teach will be judged with the greater strictness." But I think we can carry that over to our everyday life with our families, our everyday life in business. If it's true for the gospel, it could be applied to every other area of our life. And not so much that we want to look at it and say, well, that person, they don't do what's best with their clients. I've had their clients come to me after they've met with them and, here's what they did. It's not about trying to point out the faults in other people. This is a challenge to us to make sure that we have everything together and that we're doing it with the right frame of mind, the right heart, with the right convictions behind it every time we sit down and meet with somebody, because we will be judged with greater strictness, not only in how we handle the gospel, how we teach our families the Bible, if you're leading a Bible study, the way that you teach others, but it also can be translated to Medicare and how we're teaching these individuals. And it goes on later in the chapter to say, "Look at the ships also, though they are so large and are driven by strong winds. They are guided by a very small rudder, wherever the will of the pilot directs. So also the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things." The words that we say, we kind of pride ourselves on saying that we teach every agent to say the same thing in every appointment. That way we're locked in. We're not deviating from the normal script. We're making sure we cover everything in all of our meetings. But there is personal opinion. There is some guidance that comes from us. And it's not just, hey, I think you should choose this HMO plan over that HMO plan. These are decisions that have massive impacts for our customers. When you think about the prescriptions that they may have to pay, you've got clients that travel up here in Northeast Ohio. We've got snowbirds all over the place. People retire, they have a home in Florida, or they travel to Florida for a few months out of the year. There's so many other variables that we've got to be diligent to make sure that we uncover and address, even if they're not mentioning those concerns to us in the meeting. I think about a person I met with years ago who I tried talking him out of this plan because it had a very, very limited network in our area. I said, for a few extra dollars, just get the full-blown plan G, you'll be good to go. Well, the person said, well, no, I'm in good health. I'm going to save money. Well, he ended up going and having an outpatient surgery. It wasn't an inpatient stay, but they billed it as an inpatient hospital stay at an outpatient facility. And on his select plan G, it wasn't covered, and it was a shock. And that helped me realize that even if it wasn't important to the client at that point, I need to make sure I'm doing my part and being diligent to make sure they're aware of how it could affect them, even if it's not something that's a major concern for them right now. So, when I read this with my Bible study group, obviously it can be applied to the gospel and to our families, but it really hit me too on how important our words are in these meetings and how it can direct, the year financially, health-wise for so many of our clients.
That's a good point. You brought up something that I've been thinking about, which is, they need to know that your heart is there, because the heart will direct your tongue. And, it gets very easy on a Friday during the middle of AEP, knowing you have clients on Saturday and potentially Sunday as well, to want to rush through an appointment or just not give it the time that it deserves. But people will pick up on your attitude and make those judgments, and it might be that if your heart's not truly there, you can make mistakes and not put them on the plan that they really need to be on, or you might miss out on something that you should have picked up on. And that's a big deal. This is not just like what flavor of ice cream do you want today? This is a pretty big decision.
Well, and Dave, I think in the middle of that passage, James 3:4-5, they're talking about the rudder. The line ends with wherever the will of the pilot directs, right? And when we're thinking about agents and, to talk about being the teacher, we all train agents. So not only do we have that standard of working with clients, but we're also held to a higher standards because we have agents who are watching what we do and listening to what we say. But that line, I think, is just so important. The will of the pilot. What's the will of your agent if you're a client? And if you're an agent, what is your will in the direction that you're providing in that meeting for those individuals? Hopefully it is to lead them to see what their best option is based on their individual needs, their medical care, their medications, where they live, access to networks and access to care. Hopefully that is the will of you as the pilot in that interaction with a client if you're an agent. Where, to go back to where we were before, there are people in this industry who the will of the pilot is their own. It's their own gain over good intention. And that's what we don't want. And I think, Dave, you and I and Jason as well, we've been very deliberate, even in the agents that we train to recruit, to really target agencies and people that we know already are relational and, for the most part, already have that will of their client in mind as they guide them.
You read through the first part of James and you're probably discouraged. There's not a whole lot of hope when it says no human being can tame the tongue. Well, what are we supposed to do? Thankfully, he brings it home in the last paragraph where he gives you the posture of what we need to be as individuals, what we need to be as leaders in our church, leaders in our families, and also as agents where we're leading individuals into choosing plans. And here's what he says: but the wisdom from above, first of all, wisdom, what a powerful word. Skillful living is what our pastor described it as last summer when we went through the Proverbs. But wisdom from above is pure, peaceable, gentle, open to reason. We're not the ones that know everything in the meetings. Our clients do have good input, and we need to make sure we consider that. You got to be open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere. So if you're sitting in a meeting, if you're sitting at dinner with your family, if you're in the church pew, and you can look at all those characteristics and say, you know what? I've got those at the top of my mind. I've got those in my heart, and I'm pursuing each one of them. That's where James wants us to be. That's where the Lord wants us to be. If we're chasing after those qualities and those good fruits, the success in business will come. Maybe not monetary success, but we'll be able to sleep at night. We'll have peace. We'll have joy and fulfillment in the work that we do. And it'll translate into life, into church, into our families as well. So that's my encouragement for today. The tongue is an impossible thing to tame, but thank the Lord, He gave us Jesus, and He can redeem our tongues, He can redeem our hearts, and He can show us, how we can attain these qualities in our meetings and in our everyday lives.
Can I add one thing to what you just said? That list of attributes that you read, I feel like baked in there. They're not overtly stated, but there's two words that I think when we're working with seniors: humility and honesty, right? So we kind of see that there with purity. You mentioned purity. You mentioned gentleness. You mentioned good fruits, sincerity. But if you don't know something and you're in front of a client, just tell them that you don't know. Say, you know what? Your situation is really unique. I'm not really sure, but I have a whole team of people that I can go talk to, and we're going to figure this out and make sure you get the best options based on your individual need and your disability or your medical condition. And if you don't have somebody who's willing to give you those answers, even if you're not part of our team, reach out to us and we'll help you serve that client. Okay. And then the second part of that is just honesty. As Dave just said, we are all so flawed, all of us included. We're all sinful, and we're also all going to make mistakes. And there have been times where, even though we've all been doing this for a long time, Dave the longest among us, where we've done something in a meeting that was a mistake. We didn't fill an application out correctly, or we missed a checkbox, or back in the paper days, maybe we lost the application completely. Calling that individual and saying, hey, I'm sorry, I made a mistake here. I'm going to drive back to your house and we're going to have to do the application again. Can I pick you up a box of donuts on the way? Being honest with the age of people that we serve, and being humble and having that posture that Dave outlined with those attributes is so important. And if you're a newer agent, just know they're already not trusting. There's so much information. There's so much bad information, right? There's so much fake news. It's all hyperbole all the time that we're exposed to now. So if you come in with that posture that Dave outlined with that verse from James 3:17, you focus on humility, you focus on honesty, you will start to build that lasting relationship that we want to have with our clients.
Amen.
So with that, guys, Dave, thanks for organizing this. I think those were really, really good verses. And it kind of frames, we're recording this in June, the very last day or two of June here. We're all doing our certifications now. We're getting ready for the annual enrollment period. I think we should continue with this type of focus through the summer months. These essential skills and essential characteristics that Bible-believing agents should have in mind as we prepare for a really busy season and a really good opportunity to get in front of a lot of people. You guys have any final comments to wrap things up here for this episode?
Jason?
It's been a while since I've read the book of James, but I'll say
What was that?
Did I cut out?
Did you hear that, Dave?
Yeah, I was just playing along.
I didn't hear anything.
Let's back up and have you. Let's back up to. I'll say. Do you guys have any
We had
concluding?
a long pause.
Oh,
I
that's
had.
weird.
He was like You didn't hear him like vibrating?
A.
Yeah.
It sounds like your Nintendo got stuck.
Like max headroom.
I gotta blow into the cartridge.
All right, I'll go ahead and set that up again. And
Okay.
Jason, you pitch to you first. So with that, Jason, do you have any concluding comments or final thoughts for our listeners for this episode?
I haven't read the book of James in depth in quite a long time, but it almost feels like the book of James was specifically written for insurance agents with, as Dave spoke about, the impartialness, the sincerity, and as Dr. Dave talked about, the humbleness, that humility to be able to say, I don't know the answer, but we're going to find it out for you.
Dave, final thoughts for this episode?
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're new in the industry, to pass up on a sale when maybe you have potential to, I don't know, not falsify something, but you could have pushed the limits a little bit and signed them up for a plan that maybe wasn't in their best interest. I remember being in those positions when I was first starting out, and the clients that I met with and found myself in that position with, I always did what was in their best interest. If it was going with a different plan, if it was staying on employer coverage, I made that a core tenet of what I did daily in my meetings. And some of those relationships are the best ones I have now. They've lasted for a decade or more because I've kept in touch with those folks. They call and ask questions about insurance, knowing that I'm still not their agent, but they've referred so many people over as well, because they know if they can trust me to give them advice that steers them away from me, then I'll always do what's in the best interest for their clients too. Or not their clients, but their friends that they refer over. So, it's, like I said earlier, it gives you can sleep at night. It gives you joy, and it gives you fulfillment, just knowing that you're doing the best thing and the Lord will take care of it, whether it's a sale or it's another opportunity to encourage somebody.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting fact that our clients can go do what we do on their own. And that's really kind of become true of all insurance now, right? There's no real insurance policy for the most part that you can't go self-shop online. So if you're an agent, again, you're new or you've been doing this for a really long time, why should they come talk to you? And what is it that you're actually selling? Like we said at the top of this podcast, that Medicare coverage is sort of a forced choice. So you're not selling policies, you're selling yourself. You're selling the experience. You're selling the relationship. And these principles that Dave has organized for us to discuss here in this episode are principles that will help you become better at what you do, become better at taking care of people, focus always on things that matter to people, and your business will grow as a result. And I think that's a fundamental shift that we have to have. We have to walk that journey with some agents that think they're selling policies. And they have to realize now that those people can go get those on their own. So it's selling who you are and that experience, that promise of being there for many, many years to come for that individual. And I think that's something that we can all rally around. It's something that we can all do pretty naturally, right? But it is a mindset shift. And hopefully this conversation here in this episode and conversations that we have in future episodes help you as an agent with that transition to realizing what you're really marketing. Dave, since you organized our episode, do you want to close us out with a word of prayer?
Sure. Lord, we thank you again for the opportunity to gather with these two men and everyone else who's listening on the podcast. Pray that you would encourage us and give us opportunities to practice these good qualities we discussed at the end. And with your help, control our tongue, control our thoughts and our actions, Lord, so that we do everything to honor and glorify you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thanks, guys. And those of you listening, please come back and check out our next episode. We'll be recording these all through the summer. And hopefully, if we can find the space, we'll do them during the annual enrollment period too. We hope you find it encouraging, and thanks for listening to The Ultimate Upline.